This is Grunt to Groan, sales lessons learned from professional wrestling. Coming to you from the Delaware Wrestling Thunderdome, I am your host, Benjamin Burrows.
I am one voice that stands alone. I am one choice to man the throne. Stand guard and take shots, give it all I got. All I got is this microphone.
And it is a great and glorious day to be out selling your products and selling your services. For you are the great American thunder on which this nation rolls, because nothing happens until something is sold. Nothing happens until you sell it. Welcome to Grunt to Groan, sales lessons learned from professional wrestling. I'm your host, Benjamin Burrows. We are coming to you from the fabulous Delaware Wrestling Thunderdome, and I want to thank Sonny Thunder and the Sons of Thunder for allowing us to bring you this podcast week after week after week after week after week. Almost sounds like drudgery, doesn't it? Dave's over there showing me a couple of his fingers right now. No, it's not drudgery. We have a great time doing the podcast, and we want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to the Grunt to Groan podcast. And I want to thank you for communicating with me, for sending me your thoughts and your comments and your criticisms, your positives and your negatives. You can do that at greatamericanthunder@gmail.com. That's greatamericanthunder@gmail.com. Also, want to say thank you for purchasing the book, Grunt to Groan, Sales Lessons Learned from Professional Wrestling. We are just under the 900 books sold mark. Now, my goal was to sell 10,000. That's pretty aggressive for a first-time author. I understand that, and I've been told that by a lot of the industry experts that maybe I set my goal a little too high at 10,000, but I'm trusting in you, the Grunt to Groan Nation, to reach in and purchase this book. Purchase it for yourself. Purchase it for your friends. If you don't like the book, purchase it for your enemies. It's Grunt to Groan, sales lessons learned from professional wrestling. It is available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNobles.com. It's available at Walmart.com. And again, we are working very diligently to try and get it set up where you can buy the book direct from me, an autographed copy. So we're working on that right now. We'll have news on that hopefully next week. We'll also have news next week, I think. I'm looking over at Dave the Ray and the Grunt to Groan staff right now to see if they give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. We should have news next week where you can start to buy your Grunt to Groan merchandise, starting with the cover of the book, which was an art design done for me by D.O., Daniel Owens, D.O., who is on his honeymoon right now in Jamaica with his beautiful bride, G. And we'll have word hopefully next week. Is it maybe the week after? We'll have word within the next 2 weeks on how you can start to purchase your Grunt to Groan merchandise, starting with the cover of the book. I also want to thank Johnny Montana and the West Virginia Bumblebee for communicating with me this week. Last week on the podcast, I said I'd like to do a podcast strictly on prospecting, on how you prospect. How do you go out and look for new clients? So I've requested that you email me with how you prospect for new business. Do you use LinkedIn? Do you use, what method do you use to prospect? And Johnny Montana and the West Virginia Bumblebee both hit me up with two really good prospecting ideas. And that prospecting program or podcast should be next week. I think we're going to do that for next week. We have that on the schedule for, the staff has given me a thumbs up on that. Also want to say congratulations to Johnny Impact. Johnny Impact beat Austin Aries for the Impact Heavyweight Championship on Sunday night at Bound for Glory. So just want to say to Johnny Impact, congratulations on winning that title. A lot of controversy in that match. I get it. I understand it. I was listening to Dave DeGreca and Bully Ray on Busted Open yesterday, talking about all the controversy that happened after the match with Austin Aries. But putting that aside, congratulations to Johnny Impact on winning that championship. So jumping into the podcast this week, I got my PWI 28th annual Top 500 countdown of the top 500 wrestlers in professional wrestling over the weekend. Now, PWI is Pro Wrestling Illustrated. For you guys and gals out there that may not know, Pro Wrestling Illustrated is like the wrestling magazine of all wrestling magazines. It has long supported professional wrestling, and, it's back in the day, you used to be able to go to a 7-Eleven or a convenience store, and it was one of the hottest selling magazines back in the 80s. They couldn't keep it on the shelves. Pro Wrestling Illustrated, Inside Wrestling, or Wrestling Insider. Bill Apter, my hero, actually was a photojournalist for these magazines. They actually called these magazines the Apter Mags because he did so much work and poured so much of his heart and his soul and his passion into these magazines. But every year, PWI does an annual ranking of the top 500 wrestlers in professional wrestling. And my PWI annual ranking of the top 500 wrestlers came in over the weekend. So needless to say, most of my weekend has been involved in just scouring through my PWI wrestling magazine. Now, I know some of the wrestlers that are out there are probably laughing at me right now going, man, this Benjamin Burroughs, what a mark. That's what they call a diehard fan in professional wrestling. He's a mark. Well, yeah, hell yeah, I'm a mark. I love professional wrestling. And I'm a sales professional as well, but I love professional wrestling. So if you want to call me a mark, call me a mark. And I know that there's some wrestling cheat sheets out there, and there's some wrestling podcasts and some wrestling websites. They put no stock in what's written in some of these magazines and all that. But for me, it brings me great joy. I love to read PWI magazine. So it is Pro Wrestling Illustrated. If you get a chance, pick it up. The 28th annual PWI 500. And the number one wrestler this year, for the second time in a row, is a non-WWE wrestler. It is Kenny Omega. And I find that in itself pretty fascinating, that 2 years in a row that the WWE didn't have the top-ranked wrestler. Now, again, the WWE and the rankings of professional wrestling, that would be like, if you were to break it down like they do in baseball, that would be the major league of professional wrestling. That would be the show. If you watch the movie Bull Durham, Kevin Costner's character always talked about the show, getting to the show. Well, the WWE in professional wrestling is the show. It is the biggest promotion. It is an international promotion. It is traded on Wall Street. That's how big the WWE is. And they travel all over the world putting on professional wrestling events. And then you would have what would be AAA, just like in baseball. And I would say that those federations that are AAA right now, and I'm probably going to take some heat for this, I get it. So you wrestlers out there that listen to the podcast and you diehard professional wrestling fans, I'm sure you'll give me some heat on this. Even Sonny Thunder here at the Delaware Wrestling Thunderdome has given me some heat on this. But the AAA affiliates of professional wrestling would be your Ring of Honor, your New Japan, your TNA Impact. I would say that they're the AAA. And then you can go down to AA promotions, and you can go down to your single A, which may be your local guys. Like I follow Rampage Pro Wrestling and 1CW and Primal Conflict and ECWA. Although ECWA I probably would consider a double A because they're a pretty good regional wrestling company. But the WWE is like the major league. That is the show. That's the epitome. That's where you want to get to if you are a professional wrestler. That's where you want to be. And for the second year in a row, a non-WWE wrestler has topped the PWI Top 500. This year, it's Kenny Omega. Next year, I'm going to take a guess. It's probably going to be Cody Rhodes. I like Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes came in at number 8 on the ranking this year, especially with the year that Cody Rhodes has had. But Kenny Omega, congratulations on being ranked number 1 by the PWI. So how does Pro Wrestling Illustrated come up with the criteria of making their top 500? When the editors of PWI look at this, what measurements are they using? Well, on page 13 of the PWI magazine, with the top 500 rankings, they list the criteria. The criteria goes as this. It's based on a wrestler's win-loss record. It's based off a wrestler's technical ability. It's based off a wrestler's influence on the sport. It's based off a wrestler's success against the highest grade of competition. It is based on a wrestler's success against the most diverse competition. And it's based on a wrestler's activity. This is the criteria that Pro Wrestling Illustrated uses when ranking the top 500 professional wrestlers in the industry. Win-loss record, technical ability, influence on the sport, success against the highest grade of competition, success against the most diverse competition, and activity. And when I read that over the weekend, as I scoured through this magazine like a mark, I thought to myself, what if we, as sales professionals, had a top 500 ranking using this same criteria? Grunt to Groan Nation, what would that look like? If we were ranked in the profession of sales 1 to 500 based on this criteria, where do you think you would rank? And with this podcast, I want to plant a seed in you that forces you to start looking at this criteria as a scorecard for your professional sales career. And not just your career, but how about for your quarter and for your year? So as we start to move through the fourth quarter of 2018, using this criteria, what does your sales year look like? Now, I get it. I understand it. You are listening to the podcast right now and you're going, I'm already measured on profit. I'm already measured on sales quota. I'm already measured by the CRM systems that we employ. Why do I need more criteria? Well, when I read this, I really thought if you wanted to break down a sales professional, here is the criteria right here that would define success or failure. So as you look at the first 3 quarters of 2018, what does your win-loss record look like? Are you winning more business than you're losing? Are you gaining more new business than what you planned for? Are you winning sales? What is your closing ratio? What is that percentage? And you need to know that percentage if you're going to grow. If you have we're using baseball earlier. Let's use baseball. A hitter in baseball who has a career average of 300 is kind of guaranteed to making the Hall of Fame. That's a pretty good career. So if you close 30% of your business, then that's the number, your root number, that you use in planning future growth. We were talking about prospecting new business. So if you have a close ratio of 30% and you want to bring on 5 clients a week, new clients a week, you have to prospect 45 new potential clients. Why 45? Because 30% of 45 is 15. So you prospect 45 to gain 15 appointments. 30% of 15 is 5. Out of the 15 appointments, you plan to close 5. And you can see where that would drive you to want to drive your closing percentage up past 30%. You actually would want to get your closing percentage up closer to 75 or 80%. But in taking a look back and using the criteria from Pro Wrestling Illustrated's ranking of the top 500 professional wrestlers, where is your win-loss record through the first 3 quarters of 2018? The second point is technical ability. And technical ability can mean 2 things to me. One, you understanding your products and your services thoroughly. That you're continuing to educate yourself on your products and on your services. And 2, are you continuing to educate yourself on the profession of sales? You've heard me say it before, and I will say it again. We as sales professionals need to continue to educate ourselves each and every day. A couple podcasts ago, we talked about some of the great business leaders, political leaders, social leaders of our time, how they read 10 to 12 books a year, and they spend 5 hours a week continuing to educate themselves. So where would you rank your technical ability? The third point is influence on the sport, or for us, influence in our industry and with our customers. Are we making inroads on how we can influence not just our clients, but our industry? Can we influence our company? Can we influence the vendors and manufacturers that we represent? Where would you rank yourself on influencing the industry and influencing the client? Have you gained the client's trust enough to influence the client? And then, as you evaluate, you self-evaluate, what about success against the highest grade of competition? You know, in a previous podcast, I had said that I'm thankful for my competition, and you should be thankful for your competition because it drives us to be better. I've heard sales professionals complain about all this competition. But competition drives you to be better. It drives you to want to be the best that you can be for your family, for yourself, for your client, for your company. So how would you rate yourself in success against the highest grade of competition? If you walk into a client and let's just say they're using a mega giant like Amazon, do you just concede and say, I can't compete? Or are you finding ways to compete and deliver to your client? And then think about your success against the most diverse competition. We talked about this in our last podcast when we did our very first book of the month, which, by the way, was not Grunt to Groan, Sales Lessons Learned from Professional Wrestling. Thank you to the Grunt to Groan staff for that. They're all looking at me kind of weird now. It was Inside the Magic Kingdom. And we talked about diverse competition, how the Magic Kingdom, how Disney considers UPS and FedEx competitors. Why? Because when you're booking a vacation, if you don't receive the same level of respect, and you don't receive the same level of cooperation, and you don't receive the same level of professionalism, and you don't receive the same satisfaction from Disney that you did from FedEx or from UPS, then Disney believes they failed. So what has been your success against the most diverse competition? And then finally, what is your activity? As sales professionals, we are measured on activity. We are measured on sales and growth of sales, profit and growth of profit. What has been your activity? So this week on Grunt to Groan, as we celebrate Pro Wrestling Illustrated's ranking of the top 500 wrestlers in the professional wrestling industry using this criteria, as a sales professional, where do you think you rank in the industry of sales? And again, the criteria: win-loss record, technical ability, influence on your clients and your industry, success against the highest grade of competition, success against the most diverse competition, and your activity. As you go through this exercise this week, please email me your results. Email me and give me an idea of where you rank. Now, Grunt to Groan Nation, I'm not looking to put together a top 500 of the top sales professionals in this great country. This is an exercise in self-awareness to hopefully make you better. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that. Email me at greatamericanthunder@gmail.com. And just real quick, I wanted to go through some other PWI top 500 number one rankings just to give you an idea of how diverse this is. In 1992, and yes, I have my 1992 PWI magazine in my hand, the number one ranking went to Sting. At the time, he was a former two-time WCW World Champion. And, of course, his greatest feuds were against the greatest wrestler probably ever in Ric Flair. In 1994, the number one ranking went to Bret Hart. Bret, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, was the WWF World Heavyweight Champion for the second time. And he beat Yokozuna in WrestleMania 10. And in I'm just going to do one more here. Let me put one. Okay, 1995. The number one wrestler in 1995 was Diesel, a.k.a. Kevin Nash. And don't get me started there because I'm in somewhat of a feud with big, sexy Kevin Nash. That's going to wrap up this podcast of Grunt to Groan, sales lessons learned from professional wrestling. Please email me at greatamericanthunder@gmail.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn at Benjamin Burrows, and you can follow me on Twitter at Great American Thunder at Real Ben Burrows. And remember, you are the Great American Thunder on which this nation rolls, because nothing happens until something is sold. So quit listening to me and get out there. Sell something.
I am one voice that stands alone. I am one choice to man the throne. Stand guard and take shots. Give it all I got. All I got is this microphone. I am my thoughts, my skill displayed.